Ach, das Bild ist da. Hallo Andreas.
Ja, ich bin bei Freelance. Hey Gemma, welcome.
Ich. Hallo David, heute klappt's mit dem Bild.
Gut. Nee, wir haben das jetzt umgeändert. Ja, ja. Doch, haben wir. Bis dann. Ja? Tschüss, Katharina. Ah, so, Gemma, alles gut bei dir?
Alles gut bei mir soweit, ja. Bei euch, wie läuft's bei euch?
Auch gut. Wir hatten gestern eine schöne Eröffnung und,
Ja,
äh,
schön.
und ähm, das hat alles gut geklappt gestern.
Schön, das freut mich.
Ja, natürlich, komm rum. Nee, komm hier rum, ja. Das ist eine Gemma.
Hallo Gemma,
Ach, hallo.
ich wollte nur einmal Hallo sagen.
Das ist lustig
Das
aus.
ist nett.
Ja,
Hallo. Freut mich.
gut, also ich freue mich sehr, dass du das machst und bin sehr gespannt.
Ja, sehr gerne. Vielen Dank für die Einladung.
Ja, nee, es ist schon toll, dass du das machst. Das ist
Bis
super,
gleich.
wirklich.
Tschüss.
Dann warten wir noch Vialda.
Genau. Und Sebastian.
Ja, Sebastian steht im Stau und sagt, er kommt 5 Minuten später.
Ah, okay, gut.
Hoffen mal, dass der Stau nicht länger ist.
Ja. Aber ihr habt ja aber sagen nicht Herrn Biden zu Besuch in Hamburg, so wie wir, wo alle zu Hause bleiben, weil keiner sich noch traut, überhaupt irgendwo hinzufahren.
Meine
Da
Frau ist
war
heute Morgen
heute
nach
eine
Berlin.
riesen Demo eigentlich geplant, wo alle irgendwie mit Forderungen irgendwie auf die Straße gehen wollen, glaube ich. Und mit Herrn Biden weiß man gar nicht, ob das stattfinden kann. Das ist ja wirklich alles verrückt in Berlin gerade.
Ja, meine Frau ist heute Morgen nach Berlin gefahren, um das
Ah,
Enkelkind zu besuchen und hat auch schon
oh,
geflucht.
ja, das glaube ich.
Ach so, ich kann mal eben meine Kopfhörer nehmen.
Ja, weil es total krass. Also die sperren ja wirklich die ganze U-Bahn, S-Bahn, also im ganzen Regierungsbezirk. Also kein Hauptbahnhof kann man nicht mehr anfahren und solche Sachen. Also meine Schwester kam gestern aus Hannover und die konnte nur bis Ostbahnhof fahren dann.
Ja, das glaube
Da
ich.
kam man dann auch nicht mehr weg, außer dass einen mit dem Auto jemand abholt.
So. Könnt ihr mich hören?
Ja,
Sehr gut. Okay, tipptopp. Wir wissen, ob meine AirPods funktionieren. Ich sitze hier im Büro bei Freelance und dann gibt es irgendwie Confusion, weil alle Leute irgendwie doppelt alles hören.
ah, okay.
Aber so geht's gut. Ja, das glaube ich, dass da irgendwie alles gesperrt ist und höchste
Irre.
Sicherheitsstufe ist und sonst wie. Ne? Aber es ist in Berlin ja öfter. Ne? Aber ich glaube,
Bei Zelensky war es auch jetzt so. Also
bei beiden ist es besonders schlimm. Ne?
ich nehme mal an, es ist noch schlimmer. Ja. Bei Zelensky war auch, also ich weiß nicht, ob man wirklich U-Bahn und S-Bahn nicht mehr befahren. Also das scheint mir doch ein bisschen übertrieben, oder?
Ja, definitiv. Naja, ich weiß nicht, wie viele Attentäter in der U-Bahn unterwegs sind. Aber wenn alles gesperrt ist, dann weichen sie vielleicht auch auf die U-Bahn aus.
Ja, keine Ahnung. Ja, dann hoffen wir,
Was
dass
hast
die
du
Alter
denn?
kommt irgendwie, oder? Ja.
Ja, das wäre hilfreich, wenn sie kommen würde. Frage ist, wie wir sie anfragen können sonst.
Habt ihr eine Nummer von ihr? So?
Haben wir eigentlich eine Telefonnummer?
Vielleicht hat
Ja,
sie
die.
sich verrechnet mit der Zeitverschiebung, das kann ja auch passieren. Aber,
Ja.
Ach so, ja, ich würde nicht laut machen. Ich bin eh bei den Bildern, ich bin eher so
Guck mal.
weiter. Aber brauchst du auch noch welche? Nee, ich habe welche. Okay. Amit hat auch welche?
Ich brauche keinen.
Okay. Du hörst laut, ne?
Ich höre
Oh,
wohl, wenn wir alle kommen.
Mike hat sie vielleicht nicht drin. Ja, dann kannst du da.
Sonst muss nicht drin sein.
Sonst habe ich auch welche.
Nee, ich habe schon welche.
Okay, gut.
Ich schreibe ihr mal ein Mail.
das wäre wahrscheinlich eine Telefonnummer, ne? So morgens früh in
Ja.
Nee, das ist auch noch so.
Aber gestern hatte sie die Zeit auch auf dem Zettel.
Ja, stimmt. Das war ja eigentlich die gleiche Zeit, ne? Mhm.
Muss morgens früh bei ihr sein.
Ja, ja, genau.
Mail ist raus, aber ich weiß gar nicht, ob ich eine.
Das gehört zu der Musikbox.
Fällt gerade auf, dass ich, glaube ich, keine Telefonnummer von ihr habe. Ja, da heißt es Nerven bewahren jetzt, ne?
Ja.
Sonst beginnen wir halt ein paar Minuten später. Ja.
Vielleicht denkt sie auch, es ist Punkt 2 oder hat es nicht verstanden mit der Viertelstunde später. Das kann natürlich ja auch sein.
Maybe, ja.
Weil wir gestern uns ja auch um 2 getroffen haben.
Das kann sein. Wenn sie dann keine
Ja.
technischen Probleme hat, würde das ja auch noch reichen.
Mhm. Ja, gestern alles so schön vorbereitet.
Ja, eigentlich hatten wir alles gut im Griff gestern, oder? Also eigentlich,
Ja, total. Das war auch gut halt mit diesem ganzen Einrichten und so.
ja.
Mhm.
Ja. Also, ob ich irgendwo eine Telefonnummer von ihr habe.
Ja, halt gut, wenn Sebastian die vielleicht noch hat. Ja, ne?
Ja, Sebastian hat, das
Müsste die
stimmt.
haben, ne? Vielleicht
Ja,
fragst du ihn mal.
Wenn Sebastian Stau sich auch rechtzeitig auflöst.
da ist
Wird sich alles
Sebastian.
lösen.
Sebastian, dein Stau hat sich aufgelöst.
Ach, frage ich nach. Don't ask for sunshine.
Sag mal,
Hallo.
Sebastian,
Hi.
Hi,
ganz
yeah,
kurz
sorry.
mal.
Sorry for the
Hast du eine
delay.
Telefonnummer von Yalda?
Nee,
Auch
nee,
nicht,
habe ich leider nicht. Warte mal. Such hier mal.
weil sie nämlich noch nicht da ist, deswegen.
Das ist mal hilfreich. Ne? Mhm.
Normalerweise ist ja in irgendeiner Signatur eine drin, aber
Hm, War das jetzt?
ja,
So. Tap, tap. Mikro passt.
ja, passt. Wir
Klingt
hören dich
super.
gut.
Sehr gut.
Klingt super, alles gut.
So. Ach, meine Güte, ich wollte vor einer Dreiviertelstunde hier sein.
Oh,
Und dann,
wo warst du?
wir waren eigentlich nur 2 Orte weiter, was Mittagessen. Aber dann hat wirklich sehr nette Mensch, äh, das Mittagessen, ich sag mal, sehr stark handgemacht. Und dann dauerte das eine Dreiviertelstunde und plötzlich sitzt du da und denkst, so, oh Gott, Leute, ich muss jetzt auch
Noch was
los.
essen. Ja.
Ja, ich wollte eigentlich dann irgendwann nur noch los. Also wir haben dann 2 Minuten einmal reingebissen, den Rest eingepackt und meine Familie isst jetzt im Nachbarraum.
Ach, das ist
Ähm,
natürlich auch nicht
und
schön,
dann,
ne?
genau, und dann kommt noch dazu so, also ich sagte, okay, wir müssen jetzt los. Und dann Viertel vor, also 20 vor oder was, und dann kommt noch Stau dazu. Und du denkst, nee, Leute, nicht euer Ernst.
Aber du bist ja da. Nur Jalda ist
Ja,
nicht.
ja, ja. Bitte?
Ja, aber das Mittagessen ist,
Ja.
ist ins Wasser gefallen, ne?
Ja, ich habe etwas im Bauch, also ich bin fit auf jeden Fall. Das Einzige, was ich jetzt, wo alles läuft, noch einmal machen würde, ist, ich würde einmal ganz kurz noch einmal ums Eck springen. Aber das mit Yalda ist
Du hast noch
natürlich
5 Minuten, das ist nicht das Problem. Bei dir stimmt ja alles. Du
Ja.
musst eh auf Yalda warten. Spring ums
Also,
Eck.
Yalda hat mir jetzt, das sehe ich jetzt, per
Ah,
E-Mail von einer Stunde geschickt, I can't find the questions here. Can you send them quickly? Aber
ja,
sie
das
hatte
ist
die ja
vielleicht ein bisschen zu quickly, ne?
Ja.
Das wollte ich auch noch fragen. Hattet ihr das mit ihr abgesprochen, mit der Aufzeichnung und wo
Ja,
das
ja,
alles.
ja, das hatte ich abgesprochen mit
Ja,
ihr.
gut. Ich wollte nur noch mal fragen.
Nee, sie hatte gesagt, dass das alles kein Problem wäre für sie. Ganz im Gegenteil, sie wollte, dass das aufgezeichnet wird.
Okay, gut.
Ich warte gerade.
So, ich bin dann einmal ganz kurz ums Eck, ne?
Ja.
Jetzt warst du gerade weg, aber jetzt höre ich dich wieder. So, ja. Du kannst entweder das eine oder das andere schicken. Du hast auch, das ist auch nicht das erste Mal, dass du bei uns hast, ne? Dann hast du das ja schon ein paar Mal gemacht.
Andreas, wenn du gleich fertig bist mit deiner Anmoderation, brauchst du einfach nur deine Kamera auszuschalten und dann bist du weg. Genau.
Okay, super.
Ja.
Und das Mikro vielleicht auch, ne?
Das wäre gut, genau. Aber sonst kann ich das auch bei dir ausschalten. Genau.
Das wollte ich auch noch mal fragen. Ich mache auch besser immer das Mikro aus, wenn ich nicht spreche, ne? Das ist besser.
Genau,
Oder?
das wär gut.
Ja, genau.
Ja.
Ja.
Naja, es kommt auch mal darauf an, ob du Hintergrundgeräusche hast, ob da jemand im Hintergrund spricht oder laut ist. Oder wenn es ganz still ist bei dir in der Wohnung, dann ist es, glaube ich, egal.
Ja.
Ne?
Und wenn es auch nicht halt in deinem Raum, dann ist alles gut, dann kannst du es auch laufen lassen.
Okay.
Genau. Ja.
Aber ich glaube, was machen wir denn, wenn sie jetzt nicht kommt?
Ja, genau. Wir brauchen wir gleich, wenn Sebastian wiederkommt, mal so ein Szenario irgendwie, ne?
Dann fangen wir mit dir an, Gemma,
Okay.
würde ich sagen, oder?
Was über das Fotobuch. Ja.
Nee, dann erzählst du allgemein was
Ja,
über,
ja, klar.
na, über
Reporter ohne Grenzen.
Pressefreiheit, Reporter
Ja.
ohne Grenzen und all sowas.
Ja.
Ne?
Ich denke, Andreas, du hast dir gerade eine Mail geschrieben, oder?
Ja, zweimal
Ja,
schon.
okay.
Ist halt blöd mit der Nummer irgendwie. Das ist immer wichtig für ihn. Ja.
Mit welcher Nummer?
Ja, ihre Nummer einfach, dass man
Ja,
anrufen
aber ich
könnte.
habe keine. Das ist natürlich
Hat keiner,
total
ne?
besonders blöd, aber da habe ich mir überhaupt nicht dran gedacht, ehrlicherweise. Dass das passieren könnte. Nachdem das gestern so
Merkt man
gut
ja auch
passiert.
nicht nach der ganzen Absprache gestern, ne? Ja.
Ja,
Ja, eben.
Ja, ich hoffe ja immer noch irgendwie, dass sie einfach 2 Uhr Punkt da ist.
Ja, das hoffe ich auch, ehrlicherweise.
Ach so, das kann ich dir nicht sagen. Das geht hieraus nicht hervor. Das müsstest du dann vielleicht haben. Dann schreibst du die weil ich weiß, wo es abgelegt ist. Kann ich dir nicht sagen. Ich sehe aus dem Mitgliederbereich nicht hervor. Aber da sind
Ja, das wird ja spannend, ey.
Kleine Nervenprobe. Hallo Sebastian.
Sebastian,
Ja.
wollen wir, wenn Jalda nicht innerhalb der nächsten 2 Minuten kommt, pünktlich anfangen und dann sozusagen mit Gemma anfangen und mit Fragen, allgemeinen Fragen über Pressefreiheit oder sowas?
Können wir machen. Wir können ja auch schön
Ja?
improvisieren.
Ha?
Kein Problem. Wir können auch improvisieren, das kriegen wir schon hin, Gemma.
Du bist eine coole Socke, echt.
Ja, also ich sag mal so, der Gesprächsstoff mit Gemma wird nicht ausgehen, weil ich finde, das, was sie macht, ja unheimlich interessant. Und von daher, da habe ich keine Sorgen. Aber es ist natürlich trotzdem doof, weil dann auch diese Präsentation dann irgendwie so ein bisschen reingebaut wirkt, ne, wenn sie das dann so da einschiebt.
Ich würde vielleicht vorschlagen, weil ich immer noch die These habe, dass sie um 2 gedacht hat, dass sie kommt und nicht Viertel vor 2, dass wir vielleicht 2 Minuten warten, bis, wenn
Ja,
sie wirklich nicht
Ja.
kommt, dann
Ja.
machst du vielleicht die Anmoderation und Sebastian fragt einfach nochmal, was ist Reporter ohne Grenzen, bla bla, dann kann man sie immer noch reinnehmen.
Ja, finde ich auch.
auf jeden
Oder?
Fall.
Glaub ich.
Ja, ich kann auch gleich in der Anmoderation sagen, dass sie auf sie warten und
Echt,
sie
hat
ein
sie auch.
bisschen
Aber 14
delayed
Uhr
ist.
ist schon richtig? Oder hat sie jetzt 14 Uhr
Bitte?
ihre Zeit gedacht?
Nee,
Nee,
wir
ich
haben
sagte,
jetzt.
Jalda,
dass.
Jalda ist beigetreten.
Ah,
Ah, toll.
Ah, sie ist da?
Also guckt mal, ob sie da ist. Also ich habe gerade eine E-Mail
Nee,
bekommen, Jalda ist beigetreten, einem Meeting.
nee,
Nee, warte mal. Jalda ist
ich sehe sie nicht.
dem HPR
Hat,
Prep Talk beigetreten.
das ist aber was anderes, oder? Das ist nicht das,
Ich
was
habe
ich.
vor einer Minute eine Nachricht bekommen. Ich leite sie dir weiter, David. Die
Ist sie
ist
im
wahrscheinlich
falschen
in einem
Link
anderen
vielleicht?
Meeting jetzt.
In,
Ah ja,
in,
okay.
welch, in welchem Meeting? Es war immer derselbe
Ja.
Link.
Ach so, nein, warte mal.
Das
Shit.
war immer derselbe Link. Es
Ähm,
kann eigentlich kein anderes Meeting geben.
ja, das ist mein Prep Talk, den ich mit ihr hatte. Warte mal. Soll ich da jetzt gerade
kannst du da
reingehen?
reingehen?
Ja, kann ich machen. Dann bin ich hier
Dann
kurz
starten
drauf.
wir 5 Minuten später, das macht doch nichts. Das ist doch
Ja, das
Okay,
denke ich auch,
Sekunde.
bis alle da sind.
Und damit das,
so wie bei der Ausstellungseröffnung, ne?
das hat den Bubi, weißt du.
Ja. Na, bei einer Ausstellungseröffnung kann man immer gut einen Moment warten, weil dann immer noch die Leute nachkommen, sozusagen, die
Mhm.
es nicht rechtzeitig geschafft haben oder genau on minute kommen.
Ja, klar.
Ja.
Aber wenn sie da ist, kriegst du ja auch gleich im richtigen Meeting. Also das ist ja schon mal super. Hm.
Oh, great, thank you.
Dann war deine These richtig. Gemma.
Wow.
Sebastian ist wieder da.
Noch nicht, ne? Sehe noch nicht.
Doch erst da.
Ja, ah, okay.
Hat
Ich sehe
nur
nämlich
Video
nur
und Audio.
Andreas bisher. Hm?
Nee, er
Sebastian
hat
hat,
Video und Audio aus. Darf ich
Ah,
dann auch
das
seine Kamera aus?
genau, ich hatte das
Weil
so
er eigentlich nur Tech-Support macht im Hintergrund. Da ist Sebastian. Na, was sagt sie?
Wir mailen jetzt gerade hin und her. Sie war im falschen Ding und ich habe ihr jetzt gerade den Link von heute Morgen, den David heute Morgen geschickt hat, nochmal.
Sebastian, wie lange machen wir eigentlich? Das habe ich jetzt gar nicht mehr so richtig im Blick. Eine Stunde, anderthalb oder
Eine
was? Nee, eine
Stunde.
Stunde.
Also
Eine
ist
Stunde, ne?
das,
Ja.
ja, genau.
Hm? Ja.
Was mir Yalda gestern Abend dann noch geschickt hat an Text für sie, war ungefähr tatsächlich, also war weniger als 15 Minuten, das waren eher so 6 bis 7 Minuten an Text.
Das ist doch gut. Ja.
Und ich habe ihr aber gesagt, dann bei manchen Stellen darf sie gerne noch in die Tiefe gehen, weil das Sachen waren, die man, glaube ich, ohne den Kontext nicht so gut verstehen könnte oder würde. Und
Hm,
da ist sie. Und
da
deswegen
ist
habe ich
sie.
ihr dann gesagt, da darfst du gerne noch aufbauen. Und das schätze ich, dass wir jetzt dann auf die 10 kommen. Also sind wir dann in einer Dreiviertelstunde plus Fragen, sind wir in einer Stunde durch.
Yalda.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Sorry, some technical problem happened. Sorry.
So,
So, are you guys ready? Then I'll put everything live stream online, okay?
are you ready, Yalda? Gemma?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay, then give me 1 minute, please.
Yalda, can you say your last name again? Moayeri? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Moayeri.
You pronounce
Okay.
it very well.
Okay, I'm trying my best.
Okay, then I will let you know as soon as we are live. You can-
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the short delay. We have had some technical problems, but now we are ready to talk and can start. My name is Andreas Trampe. I'm one of the founders of Hamburg Portfolio Review, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this year's panel on freedom of the press, courage in the face of censorship. This week is Press Freedom Week in Hamburg. Our talk today is part of this event, in which more than 30 institutions, magazines, and organizations are participating in various discussion, lectures, and presentations. Our moderator and colleague, Sebastian H. Schröder, will be in conversation with Gemma Perskin of Reporter Without Borders and Iranian photographer Yalda Moayeri. Sebastian, Gemma, Yalda, thanks for your time and for being here. The stage is yours.
Well, thank you, Andreas, for the brief introduction. I'm really looking forward to this talk. Thank you so much for being here, Yalda and Gemma. So what are we going to talk about today? First off, definitely we're going to talk about what's it like to be an Iranian photojournalist, and on the other hand, what's it like to be a founding member and a board member of Reporters Without Borders, for sure. But then I want to start with a very brief thought that I want to give you. Most of you, or many of you, are photojournalists or have photographed in any part of your life. And just imagine you are there out on the street and you're taking a picture, and for that exact same picture, you get imprisoned. This is something that happened to Yalda, and that happens in many places in the world. And the two guests that we have here today are two that want to change that, and that have been working on changing that, and have lived with being imprisoned for more than 4 decades. So I'm really happy to have you here. We're going to hear about 10 to 15 minutes of a presentation of Yalda at the beginning, so she can give us a brief overview of her body of work that she has created in the past 4 decades. And then we're going to continue with about half an hour to 40 minutes of a talk. And then at the end, you'll have time to ask the two all the questions that you have. So thank you, Gemma and Yalda. Maybe Yalda, you start with what you have experienced in the past 4 decades in your life as a photojournalist.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian. Thanks everyone for having me. I'm gonna give you a short summary, not very short, but I'm trying to read it very quickly, to get a general perspective about me and my career. Okay, my name is Yalda Moayeri. I was born 3 years after the Iranian Islamic Revolution. Imposed hijab was not so serious on that time. When I was born, a year had passed since the start of the Iran and Iraq war, and it was so long that I can still remember the sounds of red sirens sheltering in the basement, the bombing near our house, and the Kapan lines. I spent my childhood years in a small, cultured, and very intellectual family. I always stood out among my peers in terms of family. There were more individual freedoms in our family, and I had my own opinion on almost everything. My father was a self-taught photographer who loved photography and had taken thousands of photos of me as a child. His interest in the camera made me interested in photography as well. I took my first photos at the age of 15. of different things. At the last year of high school, I decided to go to Afghanistan. Let me, share my screen. Okay, I think there's something happened. Host disabled participant, the screen sharing. Yeah, maybe you have to, okay.
Yeah, David, our technical tech guy, maybe you can make Yalda host. Should work now. Yep.
Yeah, it's working, I think.
Perfect. Now we can see your screen exactly.
Yeah, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see the photo right now?
Yes, we can see the photo.
Okay, okay. Okay. Afghanistan was at war with America at that time. I passed the Iran and Afghanistan border with a truck carrying bread. At the time, it was a curiosity to me, but after my trip to Iraq during the Iraq and US war, I chose photojournalism as my profession. The following year, I fell in love and got married. My ex-husband was also a photojournalist. With the money from our wedding gifts, we went to Indonesia to photograph the tsunami. I have continued this way as a freelancer by covering the first parliament election in Afghanistan, a flood in Pakistan, etc. I have traveled to Lebanon when the 30 days war started between Israel and Hezbollah. After the war, I began to interested in the story of women in Hezbollah, so I stayed there for almost 3 months, which led to the release of Lebanese prisoners and the exchange of Lebanon and Israel prisoners. 1 year later, I went to Georgia to cover the conflict between Georgia and Russia over South Ossetia. Due to lack of funds, I passed all this way from Tehran to Tbilisi by car. Past Armenian border by walking at midnight. It was a very difficult journey. All my stuff, including passport and money, was stolen in conflict areas, and I spent 2 days without food and a place to sleep in the streets of Tbilisi. In September 2011, I traveled to Kenya and Somalia, of course, this time not by car. I've worked on the largest refugee camp in the world in the Dadaab border between Kenya and Somalia, and on the famine in Somalia, which has been suffering from the activities of the Islamic terrorist group Al-Shabaab for many years. During all these years, I always worked on Iranian issues. I have covered the protests of Iranian people for 4 decades, the first of which in 2002 led me to Evin prison at the age of 21. In all these years, I have experienced many prison and detention centers all over my country. Women were always the subjects of my photos, even if they were security guards of the regime. I also took pictures of the first days of formation of the morality police that was supposed to deal with the women and to establish the mandatory hijab. In December 2017, when I was working as a photographer in a local newspaper in Tehran, I learned about the formation of a demonstration in Tehran University to protest against the economic situation. I quickly got myself to the university, and I was able to take this photo of a student girl who raised her hand to protest. This photo was quickly published everywhere. Many important and influential people shared this photo on social media, and this photo became the symbol of the Iranian people's protest. In the beginning, I decided to publish the photo without my name. At that time, I was living with my brother. I didn't mention my name as the photographer because of the security concerns of my family. The photo made the regime very angry, and they started to create rumor about the photo that it's not real and it's staged. 1 year later, one year after I took this picture, President Donald Trump used it on his Twitter account for the 14th anniversary of the Islamic Republic. Just after that, everything changed and the regime started to put even more pressure on me. Finally, they took me to their courts where they sentenced me to 2 years of prison. 2 years ago, in the first days of the mass demonstration after Mahsa Amini's death, I was arrested in the street for taking pictures on with my cell phone. I spent 2 months in the public ward of Karchak prison and 1 month in a solitary cell in Evin prison. Earlier, in the winter of 2007, accompanied by a documentary filmmaker, I had entered Evin prison as a photographer and cinematographer to make a documentary about imprisoned women during the 10 days of work. Apart from photography for the documentary, which was never completed or screened, I had photographed women who were imprisoned on different charges. I had also photographed female prisoners in Karchak on another occasion. I was imprisoned in prison where I had photographed not long ago. That was why right after entering those prisons and hearing the stories of the prisoners, thousands of images came to my mind. Fortunately, after 3 months, I was released on bail. So when I came out of the prison, I started photographing women who were imprisoned with me. These women cooperated a lot with me and were eager to make their voices heard in the world. I photographed 30 of my former cellmates right at the spot where they were arrested. Some of these photos have been published in Washington Post and other places. After all, they sentenced me to 6 years in jail and some additional punishments such as ban on the use of smartphones, prohibition of living in Tehran, ban on working as a photojournalist, and unpaid work as a street sweeper in a women-only park. Given the circumstance in my country, I had to leave because I couldn't work and in prison was evading for me. Now I'm in US, which offers me a great opportunity to finally hold a solo exhibition, publish my book, and live in a free country. However, to be honest, I still see myself as a traveler, not as an immigrant. In professions like social documentary photography, understanding the society you photograph is crucial. Finding work that aligns with your professional identity is also very challenging. In a world where everyone with a mobile camera is a reporter, securing assignment is becoming increasingly difficult. All of these challenges, coupled with my deep longing for a place called Iran, have made me seriously consider returning, even if it means spending a significant time in prison under the government rules.
Well,
Yeah, I'm done.
Yadav, thank you so much for that insight into your life and work, and especially I can imagine the past few years have made you really question a lot of things that you have done, especially when you had to leave home. However, I would like to start right at the beginning. You said you went to Afghanistan on a trip to see what was going on there in 2002. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And what inspired you to become a photojournalist after that trip, and what drives you to continue despite the risks that you have just described and shown us?
I mean, actually, this is a very, hard questions, because on that time, when I was going to Afghanistan, I was a very young person. I mean, I was so curious about everything. I do not consider myself as a photojournalist on that time, but in Iraq war, I mean, I just knew the job. What is it exactly? Why I have to take pictures of the people and I mean the countries in a situation like conflicts and wars. Yeah, I mean, in that war, I just know the job and the influence and the power that this job has that they can, I mean, it can move the people, it can, you know, make you think about the situation with the pictures that you can take. So yeah, it took time that I choose this job.
And did you at the time get immediate feedback? So did you have the first images that you took, did you get them published as well? So you can get the immediate feedback that you got from your work?
Yeah, actually, I was famous in my country from the very early years because there wasn't a lot of women photojournalists in my country. And when I was starting to take pictures in Afghanistan, just after that, I published some of my photos in some magazines or newspaper, and everybody know me. And yes, I got this. I mean, this reflection from the people that they were really liked it, and they were really coming with me as a women photographer. I mean, they really appreciated it, or yeah, they liked it, and it really helped me to, I mean, think that I'm doing something that, I mean, it's gonna have some influence.
Mm-hmm. Gemma, to now also have you enter the talk. Thank you for for waiting that long. You are one of the founders and board members of Reporters Without Borders.
In Germany. In Germany.
The German Reporters Without Borders, which oftentimes is abbreviated with the French name RSF, Reporters Sans Frontières. So this is what we're probably going to refer to most of the time. From your perspective, what are the most significant threats to press freedom globally today?
Yeah, it's what you just heard. I think Yalda's experience is, yeah, sad to say, very typical for a lot of countries where you have repressive regimes and people are not as free as we, for example, in Germany, to work as a photo correspondent. And very often there are also restrictions, I mean, entering countries, also for foreign journalists just reporting from difficult places. So very often you can't enter. It's the visa regime is difficult. There is a problem with accreditation. For example, in Germany, everybody can say, I'm a photographer or I'm a freelancing journalist. It's a free profession. In many other countries, you wouldn't be allowed. You need a certain allowance or a certain paper to do the job. You wouldn't be invited to press conferences or couldn't travel or wouldn't have the money. So there are many restrictions around the world for people doing this job. And I find it very courageous and impressive what Yalda just told us. And that despite all the difficulties which are extreme in Iran, because it's one of the most repressive countries in the world, she did a great job.
Yalda, are some of the challenges that Gemma just described, does that also concern you? Do you have a problem to work anywhere outside of Iran? I mean, obviously, Iran is the big problem because you can't go home unless you accept to go to jail. Are there any other restrictions that you have? Can you work everywhere else on the world?
No, not at all. I mean, there are the countries that there are some, you know, as the partner of Islamic Republic all around the world, such as the Arabic countries, especially, for example, about the Lebanon that I wanted to work there again in this war. You know, I had a lot of issues that I couldn't get there because they have influence there. They have many, you know, military service and everything, and, you know, the intelligent people. In countries, especially in Lebanon, in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, yeah, there are some countries, and I can remember that one of my interrogators told me very directly that you cannot work in Iran and you cannot work in a countries that are a partnership with us, and he was very clear. Yeah, I mean, it's not only about Iran.
And I think one has also to add at that point that for journalists coming from Iran, it would even be difficult to enter the European Union. We are very privileged with this European Union passports, but for many other people, it's very different. We invited, for example, for an event, journalist from Sudan, and he lives actually, he doesn't live in Sudan anymore. He's already outside the country, but still, he had so many problems because he had, as he said himself, the worst passport you could have to enter. So I think there are really many restrictions worldwide, which you wouldn't compare to a repressive country, but which are still have to be mentioned.
Yeah, and it's just not getting easier when I'm not sure who is from Europe who's in the stream right now. Just in the last few days, the European countries decided on making it even harder for people to enter, even when asking for asylum. So yeah, that's not going to help. Yeah, I can imagine when you're working and you're showing people like the 30 women that you photographed after you went out of were released from prison. For them, it's also very dangerous to be photographed because it's their faces that are visible. How do you build trust with your sources and subjects in such a restrictive environment?
Yeah, this is very interesting if I want to tell you, because, you know, these people, actually, I was in prison with these people and they trust me because they know who I am in prison. But about this story, they were very serious about, you know, they really helped me to show their faces and identities. They were very happy about it. And I can remember that I took pictures of around 30 women. But I think that I just published maybe 10 or 12 of these pictures, and the other ones called me and sent me messages. Where is our picture? I mean, they are very brave. I'm really proud of these women. And this is the first time I'm not sure if I can say this is the first time in the history, but this is the first time that we can see some faces and identity of the people who are protesting. If someone asks you, who are these women that they are protesting, you can show this picture and say, these are the women's. And because you know that Islamic Republic always try to deny it and always try to clear to say nothing's happened, nobody arrested, you know, that, and they even, I know that they deleted many cases in the court that, I mean, on the computers and everywhere, but there are some documents right now that can show to the world that this has happened in Iran.
But I think this example shows as well how important it is to have women in this profession, which I would imagine is not so easy in Iran, I mean, anymore. And at the same time, because you worked in Afghanistan, we have a situation there where female journalists are especially harassed and can't work anymore. And we have a whole side of the society which is not covered anymore, not by journalists, not by photographers. So I think it's very important that we have female journalists doing this job, or female photographers, because they have access to a part of the society which you wouldn't see in many other countries.
And adding to that, Yalda, when I asked you prior, like in a prep meeting, I asked you, would it be okay for you that we record this meeting and put it online later on? Because it's something different to stream it, but then, you know, put it online later that everyone can see, even the regime could see it later on. You were, no, absolutely, yes, please record it and stream it. It's important that it's there. This was a very clear decision for you. I really admire that. I'm not sure if I was that brave, but then are you not afraid that someone would see it and you would get even more problems?
I had my interviews. I mean, I was the only person, I think, that I was talking with voice when they were in Iran, in my home, just 3 months after I released from the prison. I don't think that I'm a very brave person or something, but I believe in a way, and I believe in what am I doing. I think that everyone has a way in their life, and this is my way. So, yeah, I'm doing it.
And you often said that being a woman, as Gemma already kind of introed to that topic, that being a woman was the most significant challenge in your career. You had to wear a full Islamic hijab. You had to have loose clothing, and generally you had to make sure that you were not noticed. And then later on, you got the problem with former President Trump tweeting your image. Do you think if you had been a man, you would have also been treated differently, or would that have been the same? What do you think?
Yeah, there's no any difference between the men and women in this case, and in countries like Iran. But there is something separately we can talk about it, that that when you are women, you are facing some like Sharia rules. I don't know if you know about it or not. The rules that coming from the religion or Islam, and they are specifically for women, and they are really trying to ban women with that kinds of rules. For example, when I was young and I wanted to take pictures in official events, I had to cover myself completely, which I did. And because as a woman, you are always um important for them, and you are always the men are gonna look at you. So when you are having a camera, it's gonna be double, so you have to cover yourself much more than the other ones, that nobody can see you and you're gonna hide. This is something that only exists for women, but on the other hand, we have some the security issues and everything, that we have something like, I don't know, 100 intelligence services in Iran, and all of them are separately working, and each of them can put you in jail. So, I mean, this difference between two kinds of issues exist, and only one of them is still for women. And I mean, one of them is specifically for women, but the other one is general.
Okay, so in this case, if Donald Trump had done that to a picture of a man, that would have been the same reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Gemma, from an outside perspective, how does RSF assess and address the challenges that journalists have to face working in totalitarian regimes? What can you, as an NGO from an outside country, do about it?
Yeah, we are an organization which has correspondents in many countries, which report on the events which are happening there. So a very important part of our work is actually documenting what is happening. That means that if somebody is arrested, we would try to get all information about that, also with partner organizations we are cooperating with. And that's a major part. And on the other hand, we try to help people in the country itself. So if somebody has a court case, we would, in some cases, send a lawyer. We did that many times in Turkey, for example. And also, if somebody needs to leave the country because the harassment gets so big, we also try to be helpful with leaving the country and finding the place in an exile country. But that's a case we wouldn't like to see. I mean, we mainly try to encourage people to stay and to work in their countries, but very often it's not possible, like in Yalda's case as well. And we try also to organize solidarity. I mean, it's an important part. For example, we as Reporters Without Borders in Germany, we would try to campaign, or which campaign in Germany for journalists. At the moment, for example, we are very concerned about two colleagues in Gaza who have been seriously injured, and we try to get them out. And there are nearly every week new cases where we are actually trying to do something. And as an NGO, my experience for the 30 years I'm with Reporters Without Borders Germany, I would say that you can do something. Because in many cases, it's very important to make things public, and not only in the country itself, but also internationally. So this is very helpful. And we heard it very often from people who were released from prison, that they told us afterwards that they felt encouraged and helped because they heard that people outside who care, who try to get them out.
And do you think it helps more to get it out in Germany in this case, as you're part of the German Reporters Without Borders, and to pressure the German public and politics into helping the people that are imprisoned in different countries? Or does it actually, do the governments and the regimes in the oppressing countries take note of what you're doing?
My feeling is that they do. We had an interesting thing happening, for example, with Saudi Arabia, because we have a ranking which puts like 180 countries in a list. And there, for example, Iran is on place 176 of 180, so it's very much on the bottom. And you would have Scandinavian countries on the top. And our feeling is that governments really, they care for their image, so they care where they listed. And we had the case of Saudi Arabia, for example. They contacted our office in Paris and invited a delegation to Saudi Arabia. And one of the part of the talk was that they wanted the ranking, to get the ranking better because they cared about their image, yeah? So that was strange for us, and we said, sure, you can release everybody, so your image will be fine. As we know, they didn't, but you see there is an effect. I mean, because they care for how they are seen in the world. I mean, there are countries like Russia who don't do this anymore, and I think North Korea is also not interested anymore what their image is about, but still we have many countries which do, and I think they have an interest not to give such a bad image, and that's part of it. And on the other hand, we see with our own governments, and therefore we as Reporters Without Borders, we have national sections like ours in Germany. This is in Switzerland, in Austria, and other countries. We have also offices like in Washington. And there we try actually to reach out for the public of the certain country. And there you would have more interest, for example, in a country like Germany, for countries in Eastern Europe, than, for example, in France, where they would look more for the Maghreb states. Yeah? So they have certain traditions of cooperation with certain countries, and therefore I think it makes very much sense to have this kind of national approaches as well as an organization.
Mm-hmm. And how does, well, in Yalda's case, how did RSF respond after she was arrested? And did that have an impact in this case?
We just talked yesterday about it, because I asked our office actually how much we were involved. We were asking for Yalda to get free, and we had the documentation of the case, but we were not so involved because also she left to the United States, where you have another organization, the Committee to Protect Journalists, which is American organization. And I understood yesterday that Yalda was very much closer with CPJ than with RSF. We are a European-based organization. So sometimes it happens like this, but we were also part of the demand to free her. And perhaps Yalda could answer to this question, because I think it would be interesting to hear how important, what she thinks, how important is it that you have organizations like CPJ, RSF, or others actually demanding that journalists or photographers in prison get free.
Yeah, so when RSF put out a statement, that's what I understood, right? You put out a statement and you documented the case. Did you notice, or did you get any information that this happened?
Yeah, as I told you before, I mean, the role of this organization, like Reporters Without Borders or CPJ or the other ones, this is, I don't know how much they have influence in the Western countries, but in countries like mine, this is very important, even if they are going to publish a statement or something. Because, you know, as I told you, that my interrogators told me that, okay, they, a lot of organizations published some, you know, something about you, or it's not important that if they did it, they published statements, but these are only papers. But when I felt in their behavior that they really care about it, I thought that it's gonna be very important. I think this, you know, this unity between these the journalists and, you know, the organization, this is the most important thing, that they are very scared of that. Because I told you, we as a journalist, we don't have anything, we don't have any power, any weapon, any connections, nothing, especially in Iran, because, you know, we are living like in an island, because, you know, we cannot get out of the country because of our passport, nobody can come in. I mean, cutting off completely. But when these things happens, it, I mean, reminds that even the people in the regime that, okay, somebody cares about these people.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, these people are important for someone in the Western country, and this is very important, very, very important.
And how did that make you feel when your interrogators walked up to you and said, okay, there's someone, you know, posting about you? How was that for you? I mean, obviously you noticed that they care, but when you went back to your cell, what did you feel?
Oh, I felt great. I mean, I was very happy, because when you are in a cell that nobody's there, and, you know, I was in a Wien prison, and it was very, very tough situation. You know, I was in a cell that everywhere was completely white and bright, and, you know, so yeah, I was very happy. I was very happy about it.
I think that what Yalda just said shows how important it is, not only for us as an organization, but also for ordinary people and journalists and photographers to have this solidarity with people under these circumstances. And Iran is especially a dangerous and really repressive country, with 25 journalists in jail and long sentences. And in many cases, people wouldn't hear about the support because you have internet censorship, which is much stricter than in many other countries. But still, I think the feeling that people are not forgotten, and also for their families, having the feeling that there are other people outside helping you, supporting you, and not to forget. I think that's
Exactly.
the thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
And now, I can imagine safe communication is something that is also very important in this case. Like, I mean, you're out of the country now, but I can imagine they're still onto you. And in many cases there are, especially since the Ukraine war started, reports of poisoned or kidnapped or killed journalists have risen, especially coming from Russia. Gemma, what advice do you have as Reporters Without Borders to offer journalists and photographers? Like, how do you communicate safely in these circumstances?
Perhaps I would like to say before one thing, that we see that journalists and photographers in exile, they're much more harassed than they have been many years ago. We just did a report on Iranian journalists in Great Britain, where we actually had a survey done, and which showed that the big majority feels that there is harassment to their family at home, that people have been invited to the secret police, have been interrogated, and this has an effect on people even being in exile, and that they don't feel safe and don't see it as a safe place. And this is a concern we really have, and we see this problem with a lot of countries now. And we try to advise people to also to make this public. I mean, or to go to the police, to contact organizations like ours for support. And sure, digital security plays also a role. We have a lab on digital security, which tries to help people. Also, we have scholarships where we invite journalists to Germany for 3 months to have a kind of coaching on technical support in terms of digital security. And the idea is that these people who got the scholarships go back to their countries, actually giving them in their newsrooms or in the media they work, this knowledge and be back to the people there. So it's a whole idea of spreading the news, how you can actually, especially digitally, be more safe.
Okay, so one could go to your website and look for the security lab and find information there. Yalda, how do you ensure your safe communication while working well, on the one hand side, in such high-risk environments as that you were in before, like in Afghanistan, Iraq, etc., and now, have you ever had the feeling that your communication was monitored?
Monitored by who?
Well, that's a good question. I guess by one of the governments, by secret police, or anybody who could threaten you or your family, in that matter.
I cannot answer this question, I mean, very clearly, because I don't know exactly. But as you heard in news that the regime is doing it every day, and sometimes they try to, I mean, kill some reporters or, I mean, some journalists in Europe. I don't know what are they doing exactly, but yes, they are monitoring. I'm sure that they are monitoring because they told me that we are gonna monitor you. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I just received a guest comment saying, "I'm impressed and deeply touched by your courage and work." So that's that much of information for now. A couple of years ago, Gemma, I sat on a stage with Andreas, who's just introduced us, and Lars Lindemann of Geo Magazine. And we were talking about the importance of commissioning more local photographers. They said we need to get more inside views on local matters instead of sending German colleagues or French colleagues into countries and have this outside perspective, or this perspective that we had for many, many years, which in my view makes a lot of sense. However, now, do you think that we have to overthink that idea for totalitarian countries? Because it's just, sometimes it feels just too dangerous for locals to report openly, as also for Yalda, because that could mean the whole family could be at risk. Or do you think that's exactly what we have to do, trying to take care of the risk and then still hire local photographers?
I find it difficult to find a general answer on this because it depends very much on the country. And also, I mean, I personally find it very important that you have different perspectives and not only Western journalists or photographers coming to countries and taking their pictures. I think that Instagram plays a big role here, that we see a lot of pictures. And my feeling is that also in the media, people select new photographers who haven't been so well known from certain countries because they like their aesthetics, they like their photography, and there are more chances for local journalists to get into international media on the one hand. But I think the reason shouldn't be that it's because they're paid less, because that's very often the case, as what most of the photographers here would know much better than I do, that media houses tend to hire local journalists because they think they are cheaper than sending somebody there, paying for the hotel, having, higher wages. And so that should be the reason. And it's also very important that media houses take the responsibility for the risks which local journalists take. And if you look at the situation in Gaza at the moment, where international media cannot enter, and where every information, every photograph at the moment comes from local journalists, and we see how many there have been killed for this, we see the problem. So I think it's very much about working together as international journalists with local journalists or photographers, but it should be with responsibility for them and really caring for them. And I think that's what I want to say.
Yalda, what is your take on that? What do you think? Should we hire more, or we, as in media houses from Western countries, for example, should they hire more local photographers or take care of the jobs with photographers that are more protected because they are from Western countries, for example?
I think that I mean, there's no any difference between the life of the people if they are, I mean, from the Western countries or local or anything. But of course, there is something that the local people can understand the situation and region much more better than the other one. But what was your question exactly?
Okay, so basically, do you think only concerning safety in this case? I can imagine, but this is also just a thought.
There is no any difference. Yeah, there's no any difference between the safety of because the bomb, when the bombs comes down, they are not gonna look at who is under it. Is it a local or is it a Western? No, there is no any difference.
No, that is very apparent.
It can be much better answered by people being on the ground than by anybody sitting far away, I don't know, in Berlin or wherever. I mean, therefore, in terms of safety, I would always trust that.
But if we want to consider the situation as, like, for example, facing with the intelligence services in the countries like Iran, yes, there are differences between the Western people or the local ones. But I mean, not so much because they started to capture them or they started to control them. And they have to obey the rules because, they want to get the money. So they became, unfortunately, our colleagues became like the hands of the propaganda for Islamic Republic because of the economic situation. This is a reality.
And also, I think, there is the problem that in a country like Iran, it's sometimes very difficult to get pictures at all. I mean, we are doing once a year a book, a photo book, which is called Fotos für die Pressefreiheit, so photographs for press freedom, which is published once a year. And there we try to have photographs actually a little bit showing what has happened in terms of press freedom in the last year. And I remember very well that in 23 we wanted to cover the protests in Iran, and it was nearly impossible because there were only agency photographs which we could take, and we wouldn't have a photographer there who could also send the photographs because it was so difficult with the internet. It was so very often blocked, and you couldn't get them through, and also the risks were so big. And the journalists who had left the country wouldn't have the photographs from the protests. So you end up sometimes with the situation that you're lacking photographs. So I think, therefore you see the importance of having the freedom for local photographers to work.
Yeah, but there's something much more than it. For example, we have, as you know, that we have wires in Iran, like AP or IFS, and some of the big ones are there. They have offices there, but as you can see, they're not going to publish anything against the regime. And, during all of these protests and everything happened in Iran two years ago, I can remember that the France press published a story about the cat cafe in Tehran, which really made me sad and angry because, 100,000 people are going to arrest and die in the streets, and you're going to report from a cat cafe. The story is they have offices there, they have official offices there, and they have high salaries because they're getting money in dollar. So they want to work and they have to, listen to them. And I think this is completely against all the rules of journalism in all the world. I mean, if you are a journalist, you are here to put a light on darkness. You shouldn't, walk with the propaganda system. I mean, they have their own everything. They have their own newspapers, and this is something that people really bother about it. Even about the big broadcast, unfortunately, like CNN or other ones who can come to Iran. I want to tell you that it's like a guarantee for the Islamic Republic. If you want to be here, if it's a credit for you, you have to listen to us.
Okay, so that perfectly answers my question I had earlier. It is important to still continue to hire locals because they knew how to circumvent, well, on the one hand side, propaganda, then restrictions of censorship, because they know the country and they know and they have the chance maybe to not be as controlled as foreign journalists.
Exactly.
As in your case, self-censorship affected your ability to report the truth at some point?
In my case?
In your case, because you wanted to, secure your family or yourself, apparently.
No, I didn't do it anyway. I just did it about that picture. It took only 3 months because I was living with my brother, and when I just get to my home, I released my name, and it only took 3 months.
Okay, so which picture are you talking about for
the picture of the girl who raised her hand in the protest that I told you that Donald Trump, he tweeted.
Okay, so it took you 3 months because you were with your brother, and then you said, "I'll."
I don't want to involve anyone in my issues, but I didn't scare for myself. I scared for the other ones, so I had to be careful about them. Yeah.
Okay, so coming to an end slowly, because I see that we have a couple of questions lined up already, and I also invite everyone who has questions to Yalda or Gemma, please, now is the time to put them in the comments. What changes, Yalda, do you hope to see in Iran regarding press freedom, and what role do you see yourself playing in that change?
Sorry, I was going to read this question. Can you please read it again?
Sure, of course. What changes do you hope to see in Iran regarding press freedom?
I think this is that question that all the Iranian people can answer. I mean, freedom. This is something. Yeah, exactly. This is something that everybody wait for it.
Okay. And Gemma, for you, last question. What are Reporters Without Borders' key initiatives for the future to enhance press freedom and to protect journalists all over the world?
I have to admit that it's hard enough to do what we do. I mean, I wouldn't know how to answer this, because I think we need to continue what we do, and there are more and more countries who are difficult, and especially also in Europe, a lot of problems where we thought it's far away, they're actually coming closer, even also to our own country, Germany. If you for a couple of years, we now have a documentation of cases where photographers and also journalists have been harassed by right-wingers on demonstrations. And there are people already who work in journalism who have to put their children in school and kindergarten under a false name. So I think we have really very important issues here as well.
Well, thank you so much for that. Let's continue on. I have a handful of questions from guests, and I'll just go from top to bottom so they're not ordered in a certain way. The first question: hello, I'm a student. My future career plan is to become a photojournalist, and I'm willing to work in war zones and take the corresponding risks. I would like to ask how I can start my career as a photojournalist, because I will start my internship in the next semester. Is this something we can answer in that way?
If I want to answer this question, I have to tell this person that leave this idea immediately. Yeah, because I mean, I have read on the notes that I read at the beginning that, yeah, I mean, this is completely different from, for example, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. The people are working as journalists, I mean, the normal people, and it's really getting hard to work specifically. But yeah,
Have you ever thought about
he or
leaving that?
she, yeah, he or she can do it. I mean, it's really depends on him. But yeah, he has to do some risks. I don't know.
I
In
would
your case,
like to warn the student, because we see a lot of cases where people underestimate the risks, where people go into war zones or or crisis zones unprepared and not with the experience on the job, not so insured, because insurance is here a big issue. So I would actually recommend to overthink this for a while and to start, I mean, as a journalist, and then see where you go and perhaps meet some people who have worked in areas like this. I've done this myself, and I would warn everybody to underestimate what it is about.
And Yalda, about yourself, have you ever considered changing your job and do something different?
No, maybe sometimes, I don't know. No, I didn't think about it. I think that you have to have something inside your soul. I mean, when you are, I mean, choosing a job, and I think it was in me from the many first years of my life.
When you were arrested and then sentenced, were you afraid of being locked up for years?
Yeah, of course. When I just received the 8-year sentence, I can remember that I was at the yard of the prison, and I was really shocked that what's going on with my life. Yeah, I was very, very confused.
And when did you realize that you would be released within a couple of months? Was that just the day when you were released, you found out, or was it something that was evolving and that you got an understanding that this would happen soon?
No, I just got it that they just released me. I mean that the sentence in Iran is like, because, you know, they know that, you know, what are they doing is against all the rules and everything. I mean, they just want to punish you at the way that not cost them so much. So I think it's better for them, and they prefer to, I mean, get you prison in your home, not in any public prison. So no, they are not kind, but they gave amnesty to 1,100 people because they didn't have enough space in their prisons.
Okay. A question probably for Gemma. How has the rise of social media platforms influenced the censorship of photojournalism, especially regarding controversial or politically sensitive images?
Wow, that's a difficult question. I think that social media has opened a space for many opportunities, as I mentioned, for local journalists on Instagram to be known somewhere else in the world. But on the other hand, it's also dangerous because of more harassment and actually attacks verbally. And so I think it's more difficult for a lot of people working there and having this kind of reactions in the social media. I don't know if this is an answer to the question.
We'll see. Maybe we get an answer and a reply from our guest. I've two more questions here. One is probably not very clear to answer. It's probably a common yes and no. Journalists who work for the wire services are also locals or foreigners? That's probably both, right? This is for all of us, I guess. Yeah, maybe Yalda, in your case, in Iran.
Can you ask the question again?
Sure. Journalists who work for the wire services, like AFP.
Yeah.
They're also locals, or are they foreigners for the most part?
They're locals. They're locals, yeah. The wire is always hiring, the locals. Sometimes they are working with the foreigners, but most of the time they are locals.
Okay. And then last question, Yalda, what kind of work are you doing now in the United States? Are you working for magazines or newspapers, and what are you working on?
I saw this question on this screen. I don't have any job. I'm looking for some work, actually. Yeah, I was laughing when I just saw that.
I think that's especially difficult for photographers if they leave their country. Because,
very hard.
Isn't it? I mean, it's because we see with journalists, because of the internet, there are so many opportunities now to be still active in exile media, where
exactly.
you have media which have a safe base in a country like the US or in Europe. And from there, we see, especially with a lot of Russian media now, exile media, where whole media has actually escaped the country and they work now from outside and they get funding. So I think that's a very different situation with photographers who are not in their home countries, but who have really difficulties to get contracts as an exiled journalist with Western media who say, okay, Yalda has been in, I don't know where, in Lebanon, for example, let's send her.
Yeah.
There comes again this problem I mentioned before with the visa, because I'm sure you still have an Iranian passport, isn't it? I mean, or is it Iranian passport still? Because there's even often the problem that if you're exiled, they wouldn't prolong your passport. It's difficult to get into other countries. You need an invitation, but even then, especially in Europe, it's getting much
harder. Exactly. These are the issues that they're available. But what you mentioned is absolutely correct about this difference between the journalists and photojournalists in exile, because the journalists that they can work because they have their own sources, and I mean the concept of their work is completely different. But about the photojournalists, I think it's a good idea to some association or some organization, I don't know. I mean, they're going to focus on these issues, that what is going to happen for the photojournalists that they are coming out of the countries, because they are going to, I mean, capture the events and everything with their camera, and it's not something that you can do, I mean, by distance or anything. And how they can work after that, I think it's a very important issue that maybe it's good to think about it or find a solution.
I think it would be good if you would have more scholarships for exiled photographers, if you would have more solidarity by, I don't know, photo editors in media saying,
exactly.
Okay, Yalda is in the United States, we have an election campaign, why not send her and have a different perspective on the election campaign in the US from an Iranian journalist. And this is still something, I think, which is not very much done, which has very much to do as well that the whole market is already difficult for freelancing photographers, but it's even
more as you know, in countries like the United States, you cannot do any kinds of work with any kinds of status, that you have to get the work permission, this permission, that permission. I mean that it's not, even you can find a job or editor, it doesn't have this meaning that you can start to work immediately.
Maybe this is a good ending here. A shout out for everyone to make sure that Yalda is getting the chance to work more again in the future. And to you two, thank you so much for taking the time for this very interesting talk. I could have continued for another 5 to 6 hours, I guess. I have many questions left to answer next time, I guess. Thank you, Yalda, from New York. Thank you, Gemma, from Berlin. Is that correct? Yeah, from Berlin?
Oh, I'm from Berlin. And I would say thank you for inviting. And I would be happy if you're donating to Reporters Without Borders, because to do our work, we need donations and support by members. So reach out for our website, and it would be great to see you as a member as well.
That is perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again.
And also,
the two of you, and
thanks.
yeah.
Thanks from my side, Yalda. Impressive insight behind the scenes of your life and biography. You worked such a long time under the threat of the Iranian government, so respect and thank you very much for
Thank you.
joining us and being so often. And thanks, Gemma, as well, for this interesting overview about the global press freedom situation. This is very interesting. And Sebastian, at last not least, thanks for guiding us through this important discussion. It was a pleasure to have you all at Hamburg Portfolio Review 2024. So, and I've met Yalda during World Press Photo in Amsterdam in May, and Yalda and Gemma, I hope I see you in person very
Yeah,
soon.
me
That would be
too.
really great. Would be really great. So, yeah, thank you very much. And for our users and viewers out there, next is coming the keynote from Ilvi Nikoshian. It starts in 20 minutes at 3:30 German time. So take a short rest and get something to drink or to eat or whatever. And I hope you stay with us. And I can promise this would be a very interesting, that will be a very interesting keynote from Ilvi. So thanks, everybody. And we make a short break.
Will we
Thank
stay?
you.